Good evening, North Reading. I'm Edward Brophy. I'm the Government Access Coordinator here at NORCAM, which is a very prestigious position. Well, tonight for NORCAM's very special holiday program, I'll be doing a very special reading of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's highly unorthodox and very unprofessional. Come in, come in. Mr. Sacco? What are you doing here?
I heard you were going to put the town of North Reading to sleep by reading some bore-fest book.
Now wait a second. This is a classic. You can't have Christmas without Charles Dickens.
Ha! You're right.
Well, what would you suggest?
Well,
What do you want me to do with this? Mick Foley's Christmas Chaos. Illustrations by Jerry the King Lawler. Wasn't he canceled?
I want you to read it right here in North Reading, Massachusetts.
Well, I suppose it can't be any worse than anything I've ever published. The snow, it fell quite softly on the brisk December night. The stars shone, oh so brightly, and they bathed the ground with light. The evergreen swayed, tall and proud in the winter breeze. The snow-capped branches made the pines look like giant Christmas trees. Yuletide music filled the air, faint at first, then clearer. Could that be it? Up ahead, Santa's castle growing nearer. It truly was an awesome sight, but harder to believe was knowing it was just 1 week till finally Christmas Eve. For Christmas is a magic time, a time for magic plans. The trees, the stars, the glistening snow. It seemed like a wonderland. But sometimes things aren't what they seem, and looks can sure deceive. For the scene inside the castle walls was too much to believe. The elves were running everywhere. They were loud and brash and rude. And Tommy Tot, the tallest elf, was running in the nude. The elves were throwing toys and games, and to make things even worse, Billy Bob, the smallest elf, was teaching them to curse. Santa called, "Don't say bad words, I don't want to hear it." And tiny little naked elves are not the Christmas spirit. Put on your elf pants, Tommy Top, I don't want a naked elf. You used to care about kids' toys, now you just care about yourself. "Hey, Santa Claus," yelled Tommy Top, "let me show you a neat trick." And Tommy Top, he turned around and, my goodness, moon Saint Nick. Santa shook his head in shame. He knew not what to do. And while the elves were cracking up, Billy Bob burst through. "Hey, Fatso," yelled the tiny elf, "we're not going back to work, and you can't make us. No, you can't, you bleep, 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 bleep jerk." Old Santa turned his back real quick, but Tommy caught a peek. A single tear left Santa's eye and rolled down his rosy cheek. When Santa left the naughty elves, Billy slammed the door. Then all the elves sat round the set and turned on Ra's War. Santa stumbled down the hall, his big heart clearly breaking. How could we have Christmas Day if the elves give up toy making? St. Nick staggered up the stairs to talk with Mrs. Claus, but as he reached the mirror, he simply had to pause. Maybe it's my suit, he thought, as he wiped away the tears. I haven't changed the way I look in over 90 years. This beard will be the first to go, and then this old red suit. I'll buy myself some cool new shoes and lose these dull black boots. Then I'll buy some fancy chains like that wrestler named Too Hottie. Then poor Santa took a look at his plump and dumpy body. His butt looked like Rikishi's did, and Santa did believe. It may have been those million cookies he ate last Christmas Eve. He had never felt this sad in all his jolly life, so he opened his bedroom door and told his loving wife. But Mrs. Claus heard not a word. At the TV she was looking. She was focused on the rock and tried to smell what he was cooking. Then finally old Mrs. Claus turned and said, "Come back. In an hour, maybe 2, up next is Cactus Jack." "The hardcore legend," Santa yelled, for a moment sounding jolly. "To me, he's still the hardcore champ, not Crash or Hardcore Holly." "I'll tell you what," old Santa laughed. "Those wrestlers may be fakers, but that cell match sure looked real when he wrestled The Undertaker." Then Santa told about it all, the moon, the curse, the laughter. Mrs. Claus said, "Raw is on, can't you tell me after?"
Sorry, I think you put the town to sleep.
Well, if you think this is so easy, why don't you come up here and read?
What do you get when you mix a Christmas tree with an iPad? A pineapple.
You're absolutely hysterical. It astounds me. When Santa left, the missus yelled, "I don't want to be a pain, dear, but if it's problems you've got, go tell the reindeer." Mrs. Claus sure was right, for when Santa needed fixin', nothing made him bounce right back like a heart-to-heart with Vixen. But Santa could not find the deer, though he searched both near and far, until St. Nick heard grunts and groans from out behind the barn. Santa walked around the barn, and to his startled eyes appeared the sight of Rudolph being kicked by 7 of his deer. All the deer were there but one. Then Santa saw the roof, as Cupid nailed poor Rudolph's nose with a people's hoof. "Now stop it," yelled Santa Claus. "You all must stop this beating. Just look at poor old Rudolph. His red nose is bleeding." "It's not our fault," old Donner yelled. "Please let me explain. We all think that Rudolph is a great big giant pain." "He surely is," said Blitzen. "He's got the biggest head." "That's the truth," cried Comet. "And I'm sure glad he bled." "Comet's right," called Dasher. "He walks as if he thinks that all his reindeer droppings really do not stink." "All of you," yelled Santa, "are being pains in Santa's neck, ganging up on Rudolph as if you've joined DX. "Yeah," the bleeding Rudolph yelled. Those charges are so phony. Rudy says those other deer are just a bunch of jabronis." "They're jealous of old Rudy, his cash, his doughs, his fame. The kids all cheer for Rudy and don't know their reindeer names. Rudy has 1,000,000 fans and those guys don't have any. Rudy's toys sell out in stores, theirs don't draw a penny." Santa Claus was shaking now, and then he started cursing. "I hate when that bleep 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 deer starts talking in third person. I'm dear old Santa Claus, the star of this whole show. I did just fine before you came, you and your big red nose. And I'll be fine when you're gone, to tell you the truth. First I'll clothesline you down, then I'll kick your tooth. Then we'll see if you're so smart and how you really feel when I give you a pile driver and I do the move for real. So back away, my reindeer friends. Old Santa's got flattened, gonna flatten him. I'm even gonna get this stupid song is more than triple platinum." "Go ahead," said Rudolph. "Go ahead, make Rudy's day. Harm one hair on Rudy's head, he'll have you sent away."
Lame.
"By all means, go on, come on, interrupt me again, see what happens."
What is the Grinch's least favorite band? The Who.
"Why don't you stick a sock in it? On it. Stop interrupting." Old Claus will then go on a trip, a long and lonely journey, when Rudy makes a single call to his law attorney. Just think of poor old Santa Claus inside a dingy jail, and how there will be Christmas joy when Santa can't make bail. Old Santa stopped right in his tracks. He knew the deer was right. Santa was just not prepared for bitter legal fights. For after Rudolph's silly song topped charts across the nation, Rudolph won the copyright through brutal litigation. Rudolph sure had proved to be a selfish individual, and every time his song was played, he got a small residual. For Santa Claus, it really seemed that nothing else mattered. Father Christmas felt his heart had finally been shattered. Santa Claus used to be a ripe and jolly elf, but now he stumbled in a trance while talking to himself. It hurts me, I finally know after all these years, that Santa Claus has just run out of his Christmas cheer. I sit inside these shopping malls while little girls and chaps all rattle off long lists of toys and pee on Santa's lap. It used to be so easy. The boys liked choo-choo trains. The girls wanted dollies or a single candy cane. Now the lists are longer. The kids want bigger things. CDs, TVs, VCRs, and gigantic wrestling rings. It used to be the kids would yell, "Santa!" and they'd hug me. But nowadays, a lot of kids would just likely mug me. "Let me tell you," said St. Nick, entering his castle. "Christmas time in days like these is just a giant hassle." "How are you?" asked Mrs. Claus as Santa walked upstairs. "I'm not sure," St. Nick shot back, "that you even care." "Now, Santa Claus," the missus said, "there really is no room for that kind of grouchy talk with Christmas coming soon." "My mind's made up," said Santa Claus, trying not to cry. "It doesn't seem to matter much how long or hard I try. I tell the children Christmas time really gets its start with the love they carry inside of all their hearts. Poor Santa's face was full of pain. His eyes were filled with tears. Then he said, I'm sorry, there will be no trip this year. Throughout the castle, word was spread that Santa was through. Panic struck the little elves. Well, what else could they do? Tommy Tot began to cry, without Santa, where would I be? Maybe with those poor sad elves baking cookies in a tree. Rudolph, too, had second thoughts. He was even heard to say, Rudy knows it's Santa who let Rudy guide the sleigh. And at last, it seemed to come too late, for Santa seemed depressed. He locked himself inside his room, and all he did was rest. Around the world, the news had spread. The children were annoyed. If Santa was not coming, then who would bring their toys? By the millions, letters came and toy demands were listed. One child wanted Al Snow's best matches, though no such tape existed. Mrs. Claus felt terrible. She felt she was the cause. The children of the world would weep without dear Santa Claus. It's my fault for being rude, so I'll do the only thing I can. I'll call the WWE and speak to Vince McMahon. Mrs. Claus then told the tale. Vince seemed to understand. I'll put my wrestlers on a plane and they will lend a hand. The elves were shaking in their boots when the wrestlers left the plane. One elf even peed in his pants when he saw the size of Cain. The reindeer, too, stood in fear, as if almost petrified. The big show sure looked hungry. No wonder Dancer cried. The landing plane woke Santa Claus, who jumped out of his bed. He saw the wrestlers and he thought, maybe Christmas isn't dead. The superstars had filled his heart with confidence and joy. Maybe it was not too late for all the girls and boys. It was true they'd come to help, and for the first time in a while, a year or two or three or four, Steve Blackman cracked a smile. Things were really looking up. Perhaps Christmas would be saved. Then, as if on Ra's war, some wrestlers misbehaved. Santa stared in disbelief for the first time in his life. A superstar had mistletoe and tried to kiss his wife. A startled voice whispered out, oh no, I think he's seen us. St. Nick yelled, oh yes, I have. Come out of here, Val Venus. Then an elf named Dewey Doo yelled, get the North Pole cops. We caught Jerry Lawler taking toys from our toy shop. Kurt Angle, and Jericho were yelling at each other when Santa finally blew his top. I'm Santa, not your mother. I've always been a wrestling fan. I know those moves aren't fake, but you've ignored my only rule. Be good, for goodness sake. Big Valboski, I'm sad to say, you're off my good boys list. Do your best to understand that's my wife you tried to kiss. To the king, old Santa said, I hope you're not surprised when underneath the Christmas tree you find no art supplies. All of you should be ashamed. So I'm giving you an order. Get on the plane and fly right back to Vince McMahon's headquarters. The superstars got on the plane, then vanished out of sight, while Santa stood in the snow, staring off into the night. He looked at the brightest star and he made a wish. He wished to find a single child who had no selfishness. So Santa walked up to his room and opened the door. He took a giant bag of mail and dumped it on the floor. 1,000 letters, Santa guessed. I'll read every single one, searching for that special child, but after that, I'm done. If just one child shows no greed, I'll have some hope, thought Santa. He opened the first envelope, postmarked in Atlanta. Hey, Santa Claus, began the kid. This year I want plenty of computer games and cold hard cash, mostly 10s and 20s. All the letters seemed the same, from Portland to Kissimmee. The children sang out like a choir, gimme, gimme, gimme.
If I may, Eddie, if you don't mind, I'm going to go one more time.
Go ahead, I'll wait.
How did Scrooge win the football game? The ghost of Christmas past. That's good stuff.
Are you done yet? Santa thought all hope was lost, then he opened the last. Let's see how greedy this kid is, who comes from Lawrence, Mass. Santa quickly turned the page, and when the page was turned, he saw a photo of a little boy who'd been very badly burned. What pain this little boy had known, such suffering for a child, but the thing that touched dear Santa most was the magic in his smile. Last year I had an accident, my life was nearly ended, but I was given so much love while my body mended. The nurses, they took care of me, my mom gave me gifts and parties, and I even got a chance to meet Edge, Ivory, and both Hardys. But other kids don't have my luck, their happiness is small. Without the thought of Santa Claus, they'd have no joy at all. So Santa Claus, won't you please consider my request? I hope that you'll do what's right. I love you, you're the best. Santa Claus put down the note and he held it to his chest. Another tear rolled down his cheek, a tear of happiness. Tell the world that Christmas lives, yelled jolly old St. Nick. But if we are to make our date, we'd better move real quick. I will never say another curse, said Billy Bob. And you won't see my elf butt again, promised Tommy Tot. We know it was we, not you, who acted like big jerks. So all the while you've been at rest, we've been hard at work. We made all the toys for the kids. We met all their demands. We even made the Al Snow dolls that all the stores had banned. The reindeer were next to speak. They asked to be forgiven. They even polished Santa's sleigh, the one he had always driven. Rudolph said, "I'm sorry too," and to show his loyalties, he cut the other reindeer in half of all his royalties. "I've learned my lesson, Mr. Claus. The deer and I won't fight. It would be an honor, sir, to guide your sleigh tonight." Santa jumped into his sleigh and said, "Let's go and fast. We've got a world of kids to please. Our first stop, Lawrence, Mass." You happy now?
Eddie, you've restored my holiday spirit, and for that, I have a very special gift for you.
If this turns out to be a severed head, I'm gonna be really bummed out.
Just open it.
Wow, a not officially licensed WWE ECW World Heavyweight Championship held by such greats as Vince McMahon, Big Show, and Kane. Wow. Wow, if Mikey Whipwreck can hold this title, why too can't Eddie Brophy? Thank you, Mr. Sacco. In fact, I have something to give to you. Come on in. I found him, Mr. Sacco. Your long-lost brother, Topher.
All those years ago, you went missing in the laundry. Brother. I missed you.
It's a Christmas miracle. Well, Merry Christmas to all. Remember, have a nice day.
Idiots! I work with a bunch of idiots! Get out of the way.
What do you get when you mix a Christmas tree with an iPad? A pineapple.
If you don't start to produce quality programming, you won't be on TV!
We're on TV!